Now, I think there's a lot of copying and pasting of ideas in this whole watch space. Once somebody says they feel some particular way about a particular watch, everybody else seems to latch on to that very idea and making it their own. But one brand on a lesser degree that I've been seeing a good amount of hype around is this brand called Monta. And I recently had the opportunity to wear one of their watches, the Atlas GMT. And after 2 weeks of consistent wear, I can finally say that I get what the hype is about, and I think you should too. Now, Monta's been on my list for quite a while to do a review on. They fall in that category, I would say, of like affordable luxury type of micro brand, which and it's kind of what they've carved out for themselves. And I hear so much praise of their watches, of just how well finished they are, you know, how well constructed they are, and how they kind of give a lot of the big boys a run for their money. They're based in St. Louis, Missouri, so in the US. They're Swiss-made watches, so I've been kind of postponing this, but I finally had the opportunity to finally review one. And before I get into this review, there's things that this watch isn't perfect in, but there's a lot of really good with this watch after spending some time with it. And I just want to preface this first by saying I was not paid a dime. I was not given this watch to keep. I'm sending it back. I have the shipping label actually right over there. So just take that all into consideration when thinking about this review. I'm being as objective as possible. I'm saying a lot of positive things, and I know when you hear positive things about a micro brand, a lot of people just assume, hey, this is just a paid ad. And also, before we jump into this review, guys, if you could give this video a thumbs up if you like the reviews, really appreciate it. As that's not something I just throw out there as something nice to do. It really does help the channel grow. So first, case size 38.5 millimeters, case thickness of 10.2 millimeters, lug to lug of 47 millimeters, water resistance of 150 meters. We have a sapphire crystal with anti-reflective coating, and the movement here, an automatic ETA 28932. Now this Atlas family, differing slightly from the aesthetics of the Triumph line, another line within Monta's catalog, comes in 3 different dial colors. So you have a charcoal, a blue, and my favorite, this opaline, minus one flaw that I'll mention a little bit later. Starting with the watch on the wrist, we have a nicely sized watch with interesting dimensions. So despite it having a case diameter that mirrors more of the SARB 033 and 035, as well as the Zin 556s, which I've done a review on, we get a watch that wears actually closer to pre-Supercase sports Rolexes, given its 47 millimeter lug to lug. And since I went from wearing my Explorer 2 to this Atlas, I did notice comparable sizing with these two watches conveniently, with similar lug to lugs, thickness, and a brushed stainless steel bezel, which on the topic of the brush finishing is what we're gonna see the majority of the time throughout the watch and the case and the bracelet. There's some mixing of sandblasting and polishing, but most of the surfaces are brushed. Along the side of the case and the lugs, we're greeted with a really sleek chamfered edge, which is a nice indicator of the time undertaken to develop this case. For strap options, few to choose from, you have the option for a rubber or a leather strap, as well as the bracelet, where in my case is where I spent the entirety of my time wearing this piece. When handling the Atlas, the bracelet is one of the quick areas where the watch stands out, with a very secure locking class system that contains 4 micro adjustment points in order to get a precise fit following the adjusted screwed in links. It's also very comfortable on the wrist, as each link has a considerable amount of flexibility at the anchoring point, allowing it to form to the wrist well, and was noticeable when it meets the case, as there's really no flaring of this bracelet, making it wear really true to size and actually making it much more accommodating for smaller wrist folks like myself. Looking within the sapphire crystal, we're greeted with what Monta calls their opaline dial, which in my words, I would describe as kind of a creamy silver. At the 12, we have the printing of Monta's logo, and at the 6, the writing of Atlas and a secondary splash of blue above the GMT and water resistance, as well as a nicely executed outline date window. And in the past, I've been on record for saying that I'm not a big fan of 6 o'clock date windows, but I've kind of come full circle with this, and now I've kind of embraced them, especially after that review of the Globemaster. For some reason, just fit really well in that dial. I think when they're well done, you know, they're well done, and I think this one is well done, and I like just the balance in the dial. So in my video about pet peeves, I think that one I've gotten over. Along the outside of the dial, we have a standard minute track and beautifully executed applied indices marking the hours, which at first glance and even upon closer inspection are probably some of the quickest indicators that this piece is a level up from many of the smaller independent shops. The indices are filled with luminova that match the rhodium plated sword style hands and have a nice lume to them. And on the subject of the hands and the indices, I think these are the focus point of two of the smaller but cooler details of this watch. First, again, I want to stress how raised these applied indices are, especially at the 12, which also does a cool job of integrating the minutes along the outer track of the dial. So a pretty unique way of integrating that applied indice to work in two different ways. In addition, with these heavily raised indices, especially again at the 12, it required an alteration to the blue GMT hand, as if you look at the tip, you can see how it is bent in order to freely pass over the indices, which I think is just such a damn cool detail of this watch, and it's pretty awesome to see how this applied indices and the hands kind of work together here. Now, my only gripe with an otherwise great dial is the inner rehat GMT scale, so the 24-hour scale. You notice that it's basically, or maybe you didn't even notice because it's not very legible, the black on black makes it pretty difficult, and I found that this is actually only an issue with this particular variant. So the other different atlases that you can choose from, this is not an issue as it's much more legible. I think the easy fix here would just to be add white lettering instead of the black on black, or you could possibly take advantage of the expanded real estate that is the brushed bezel. And honestly, in terms of thickness, is about the same thickness as the Rolex Explorer 2 that I have, and I kind of was going back and forth with wearing in my time reviewing this watch. So they could kind of take advantage of that, but I feel like a lot of people, if I know watch enthusiasts, they'll end up saying that then it's a homage to the Rolex Explorer 2, so it might just be better to kind of keep this design style and just add the white lettering there. But that's one note here, I think, taking away from an otherwise really flawlessly executed dial here. At the 3, we have a screw down crown that can adjust the time at the farthest pulled out position, moving all the hands in the process and stopping the second hand as well. Then at the first pulled out position of the crown, you have the ability to adjust the date by turning counterclockwise and can adjust the GMT hand by rotating clockwise. When flipping the Atlas over, we have an open case back providing full view of the ETA 2893-2, the GMT offering amongst the ETA 2890 series. And from looking on Monta's website as well as other outlets online, it appears that this is a change within the Atlas, as the SW330 was the caliber commonly found within this in the past. I'm not entirely sure why there was a shift. However, I think given the more limited pushback ETA movements get, sometimes I don't think that's warranted in any way, because I think Sellita makes great movements as well. I do think this will probably be a good move based on just the buyer perception of ETA versus Sellita, which again, I don't think is necessarily warranted. But this ETA 2893-2 clocks in at 4 Hertz, 28,800 vibrations per hour, has 21 joules, an added 24-hour hand, power reserve of 42 hours, and Monta regulates these to plus or minus 5 seconds a day, which I found this particular one running well within, with mine only running a few seconds fast a day. So to provide a final conclusion on this watch, we have to look at the price as well. So with the rubber strap, we're looking at $1,565. And if you want to go for the bracelet, $1,795. So I think we have to address the elephant in the room. Yes, this is still a considerable amount of money to be asking for a watch, especially when you're considering there's the Oruses out there, the Zins out there, as well as many of the Swatch Group offering, like the Longines, the Mitos, Tissot's, Hamiltons, that also are offering great watches for this price. However, I'll be honest, I mean, I think this watch is, I think, worthy of the price. I think outside of the branding and the heritage aspect, if you go down the board, the movement is solid, the bracelet is fantastic, as well as just the overall small little details of the watch, like the GMT hand, the applied indices. This is a really well done watch, top to bottom. And I had the opportunity to review comparable watches, the Zin 556, as well as the Oris Big Crown Pointer Date, which I would argue is probably two of the watches that would maybe go head to head with a piece like this in this particular category of price. The Oris retailing above this, and the Zin retailing a little bit below this. But I would say that this watch actually hangs with those two and maybe surpasses them in certain ways. The only thing I will say is the fact that Zin, Oris, they have a little bit more heritage. All the Swatch Group brands, they have more heritage. So it's still an uphill battle for brands like Christopher Ward, brands like Monta, as well as Formex, brands that I think are producing really good value for money watches in this price range. But still have to battle with the big boys and all the resources that they have at their disposal. But if Monta, as well as other brands like this, keep producing watches of this caliber, and I think Monta honestly is in a league of their own. This is one of the best microbrands, if not the best microbrand that I've had to review on the channel. They're gonna continue to really get out of that area of just being classified as a microbrand and being seen as a very viable option in this price category. And after spending time wearing this watch, I'll say it again, I get what the hype is all about. And I think Monta did a fantastic job with this piece. So guys, if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. And quick question for you all as well. What are your overall thoughts on microbrands? I think Monta is an interesting case where I don't think you're really making any compromises in terms of the quality that is associated with other main big players in the price tier. I think just the conversation around looking down at your wrist and seeing a brand that maybe doesn't have the same heritage connected to it, does that have weight to you? I think there's something to be said there, and I would love to see what microbrands also, who do you like? Who else do you think are doing a really good job? Also guys, if you're in the market for any watches or watch straps, no better place than Baldassarre.com and Bob's Watches, and a great way to support the show as well. So guys, thank you again so much for watching, be well, and I will see you all very soon.